The dark secret. Hollywood doesn't want you to know about Marilyn Monroe's death. On August 5, 1962, the world was told that Marilyn Monroe, Hollywood's brightest star, had taken her own life. This is the story you know, a story of a beautiful, yet troubled icon, besieged by depression, who finally succumbed to her demons in her Brentwood home. The official ruling was a probable suicide by drug overdose, a tragic but seemingly simple end to a complicated life. But what if that's not the whole story? For over 60 years, that official narrative has been challenged by gaping holes and lingering questions. Crucial evidence has been debated. Medical reports that don't seem to add up, witnesses who changed their stories, and a rumored little red diary said to hold the secrets of America's most powerful men that has never been found. In this video, we're not just going to repeat the official story. We will dissect it, explore the theories of a cover-up, and connect the dots between Hollywood, the mob, and the White House to reveal a dark secret they may have thought was buried forever. Part 1. The official illusion. To understand the mystery, you first have to understand the story they want you to believe. It begins in the pre-dawn hours of August 5, 1962. Marilyn Monroe's housekeeper, Eunice Murray, noticed a light under Marilyn's bedroom door. Getting no answer, she called Marilyn's psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson. According to the official report, Dr. Greenson broke a window to get into the locked room. Inside, they found a scene that would be seared into the public consciousness. Marilyn Monroe, lying naked and face down on her bed, clutching a telephone. On her nightstand, a collection of empty pill bottles. It was a somber scene that seemed to confirm the public's perception of the fragile star. The Los Angeles police were called, and a brief investigation concluded that her death was caused by a self-administered overdose of sedative drugs. Case closed. The official narrative was set in stone before the sun had even fully risen. A tragic beauty, a history of depression, a room full of pill bottles. It was a simple, sad story, maybe too simple. Because the moment investigators and researchers looked closer, the official illusion began to show cracks. The first, and perhaps most significant, appeared at the coroner's office with what some consider a glaring medical inconsistency. The autopsy confirmed lethal levels of barbiturates in her system, but the pathologist, Dr. Thomas Noguchi, noted a surprising lack of pill residue in her stomach. So, if she didn't swallow the dozens of pills, how did a lethal dose get into her system? While some experts argue the drugs could have been absorbed rapidly, this detail has fueled speculation for decades. It wasn't just an inconsistency, it was a direct challenge to the suicide narrative. And it was just the beginning. Part 2. The cracks in the foundation. The official story of Marilyn's death isn't just a story with a few holes, it's a narrative that crumbles under scrutiny. When you look at the forensic questions, the crime scene, and the missing items, the official report leaves more questions than answers. Let's break down the three biggest areas of contention. Number 1. The medical mystery. The autopsy was conducted by Dr. Thomas Noguchi, a junior medical examiner at the time. What he found, and what he didn't find, is at the heart of this mystery. As we mentioned, there was a notable absence of pill residue. While this doesn't disprove the official story, it's a detail that has always troubled those who doubt the suicide verdict, especially given the massive quantity of pills she supposedly took. But it gets stranger. Dr. Noguchi's examination noted a fresh, unexplained bruise on her left hip and lower back. Were these from a simple fall? Or did they indicate a struggle in her final hours? The official report never provided a clear answer. Then there's the matter of lividity, the process where blood settles in the body after death. Marilyn was found face down, so lividity should have been on the front of her body. However, some anecdotal reports have suggested that lividity was also found on her back, which would indicate her body was moved hours after death. It's important to note, this dual lividity was not documented in the official autopsy report. Finally, the toxicology process itself is surrounded by questions. Dr. Noguchi later wrote in his memoir about the case, and it's been reported that tissue samples from her organs, which could have definitively answered questions, were destroyed before they could be fully analyzed. While there's no evidence of sinister intent, and it could have been a procedural error, the result is a permanently incomplete investigation. Noguchi himself, while maintaining that suicide was very probable, has acknowledged the case's unanswered questions. Number 2. The contaminated crime scene. The physical evidence at the scene was compromised almost immediately. The housekeeper, Eunice Murray, gave conflicting stories about the night's timeline. She changed her story about when she discovered something was wrong, and phone records reportedly showed calls were made from the house long before police were notified at 4:25 a.m. "Mom, why was there a delay of several hours in calling for help after finding the world's most famous movie star unresponsive?" This leads to one of the most infamous, though unconfirmed, details of the case: the washing machine. Multiple anecdotal accounts claim that when the police arrived, Eunice Murray was doing laundry, specifically Marilyn's bedsheets. This story is not in any official report and should be treated as a rumor, but if true, it would represent a major destruction of evidence. The actions of her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson, also raised flags. His and Murray's shifting timelines and the long delay before contacting police have led many to believe they weren't just discovering a tragedy, but managing a crisis. Number 3. The missing evidence. If what was found at the scene was suspicious, what went missing is even more fuel for speculation. The most legendary of these vanished items is Monroe's rumored Little Red Diary. While its existence has never been proven, friends and insiders have long claimed she kept detailed notes on her conversations with powerful figures. This wasn't just a personal journal, it was potentially a political bombshell. According to these decades-old rumors, this diary, along with phone records and other papers, disappeared from her home after her death. Its alleged contents, details of her supposed relationships with both John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy, would have provided a motive for someone to want it gone. The FBI even had files documenting rumors of the diary's existence and its potential to cause a scandal. The diary has never been found, and its absence leaves a void at the heart of the investigation that has been filled with over 60 years of suspicion. We have a medical report with key questions, a crime scene with conflicting timelines, and crucial evidence that may have vanished. If you're finding this as suspicious as I am, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments. Based on what you've heard so far, do you believe the official story? Part 3. Connecting the dots. So if the official story has holes, who might have had a motive to want Marilyn Monroe silent? The theories lead us through the intersecting worlds of Hollywood, organized crime, and the highest office in the land, Hollywood and the mob. By 1962, Marilyn was clashing with 20th Century Fox. Fired from her last film, Something's Got to Give, she had just been rehired before her death. She was seen as volatile, but she was also a massive asset. Her connections, however, went far beyond the studio. Through her friendship with Frank Sinatra, Marilyn was allegedly drawn into the orbit of mob boss Sam Giancana. In that era, the lines between Hollywood and organized crime were incredibly blurry. It's been theorized that the mob may have used Marilyn to get close to the Kennedys, or even bugged her home to gather compromising information on Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, who was leading a crusade against them. If Marilyn knew too much about the mob's links to the White House, she would have been a liability. The White House connection. This brings us to the most explosive and persistent theory, her alleged involvement with the Kennedy brothers. It is widely claimed, though never definitively proven, that Marilyn Monroe had affairs with both President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. These allegations are debated by historians, but are supported by numerous anecdotal sources. In the summer of 1962, her alleged relationship with Robert Kennedy is said to have intensified. For the Kennedys, this would have been a national security nightmare. Marilyn was known to be emotionally unstable and had ties to mob figures under federal investigation. According to some biographers, she felt used by the brothers and threatened to hold a press conference to expose her relationships with them. This brings us to one of the most contested details of all. Was Robert F. Kennedy in Los Angeles on the day Marilyn died? Official records and credible sources place him in Northern California with his family. However, several alternative accounts, including a late-in-life claim from housekeeper Eunice Murray, allege that RFK was at Marilyn's house on August 4th and had a heated argument with her. If true, the Attorney General's officially denied presence at her home on the day of her death would be the most incriminating piece of the puzzle. Part 4. The revelation. So, we have baffling medical questions, a compromised crime scene, and powerful groups who may have had reason to fear what Marilyn Monroe knew. When you bring these threads together, an alternative and far more chilling narrative emerges. This theory suggests that Marilyn Monroe's death was not a suicide, but a murder, orchestrated to look like one. Let's reconstruct the theory based on the speculative evidence. In this scenario, someone visits Marilyn's home to silence her and retrieve the red diary. A fierce argument breaks out, perhaps leading to a struggle that could explain the bruises on her body. Panicked, the person or people involved realize the situation is out of control. A decision is made to silence her, perhaps to incapacitate her, and make it look like another overdose attempt. This leads to the most speculative part of the theory, that the lethal dose of barbiturates was administered via an enema. This idea, while lacking forensic evidence, has been advanced by some authors to explain the lack of pill residue in her stomach and the rapid absorption of the drugs. In this scenario, her psychiatrist Dr. Greenson and housekeeper Eunice Murray are not the discoverers of a suicide. They are part of a cleanup crew. Their job is to stage the scene. They move the body, which could explain the anecdotal reports of dual lividity. They place the empty pill bottles on the nightstand and wait for hours, coordinating their stories before finally calling the police. Was it a deliberate murder? Or, as some have suggested, an attempt to sedate her that went horribly wrong, which then had to be covered up to protect a powerful figure? In either version of this theory, the outcome is the same. Marilyn Monroe was dead, and those responsible would have had the motive and influence to stage the scene as a probable suicide. Part 5. The unsettling conclusion. For 60 years, the official story of Marilyn Monroe's death has served as a convenient explanation. The narrative of the depressed starlet who took her own life was easy for the public to accept, but the lingering questions tell a very different story. The fact that the medical examiner found no pill residue in her stomach, the fact that her body may have been moved, the fact that unexplained bruises were dismissed, the fact that the housekeeper gave conflicting timelines and waited hours to call for help, and the fact that she was entangled with the president, the attorney general, and the mafia, who all had powerful reasons to want her silent. In 1982, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office did reopen the case, acknowledging factual discrepancies and unanswered questions. However, they ultimately concluded there was no credible evidence to support a murder theory, and once again closed the book on Marilyn Monroe. To many, this conclusion only deepened the suspicion that the full story was being suppressed. A murder, as the DA's report noted, would have required a massive conspiracy, so we are left with a choice. Do we believe the official illusion, a story riddled with contradictions? Or do we entertain the mountain of circumstantial claims that point to something far darker? Was Marilyn Monroe a tragic victim of her own demons? Or was she a woman who knew too much, a casualty of a desperate cover-up to protect powerful men? Was she silenced? The authorities say no. The evidence remains debated. The truth, like Marilyn herself, remains an enigma, buried somewhere in the dark heart of Hollywood. What do you believe? The questions surrounding Marilyn Monroe's death may never be definitively answered, but the search for truth continues. If you want to dive deeper into history's greatest mysteries, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. And click the video on your screen now for our investigation into the conspiracy that ruined Stanley Kubrick's life. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay informed and stay curious.